Hey sis, let's heal. If my voice sounds a bit off, just know that it's in the AMs when I'm recording this because I can't sleep. I'm struggling to sleep and I have work very early in the morning. I also have a very bad headache, but I said, you know what, we are putting out episodes now. I think I'm ready to be back to content creation. I'm back on YouTube. If you haven't already checked that out, please just head over to my YouTube. All my other episodes are also there, and if you haven't caught up with the other episodes, please do that. My very last episode, please go ahead and listen to that one after listening to this one. And yeah, let's just have more conversations on healing. And in today's episode, if I keep losing my train of thought, please forgive me. I have a very bad headache. But what I wanted to chat about in today's episode is healing our abandonment issues. And this thought just randomly hit me, honestly, because I know that this is something that I personally struggle with. I think I also share on my YouTube channel that I was diagnosed with BPD last year, 2 years ago. I was officially diagnosed with BPD after just always thinking I was depressed, which I think I was. I do think that I struggle with my mental health to a certain degree, but for the longest time I thought I was just severely depressed. But then eventually I got a proper diagnosis and I was diagnosed with BPD. And a very large or a very important factor to it is also just having very a heightened fear of abandonment. Essentially, you fear people leaving you, and this can be because of your childhood. Maybe if you were never heard as a child. I'm in no means a psychologist or a doctor. I'm just saying this based off of my own research that I tried to make when I found out. But yes, this can be based off of your environment and how you grew up. Maybe if you grew up as a child that was not heard by your caregivers, or if obviously you were just not seen, or your caregiver was just always leaving, or you felt like you had to do something in order to be seen at home, or in order for your caregiver to give you some kind of attention, you had to behave a specific kind of way. And I have this thing with me and my childhood where I don't remember a lot of my childhood. So I'll give you guys just maybe a backstory about how I grew up. So I grew up in Ramatlabama. If you in Mafikeng, then you know where that is. I grew up by the Botswana border with obviously my mom, my dad, and my 3 brothers. And then after some time, we all moved to Mafikeng, to where my family house is now. So although we lived in the Botswana border, we were traveling a lot. So we attended school in Mafikeng, but we lived in the border, so we were doing a lot of traveling. But that's not even significant. But the significance of this is that I don't remember my childhood in Ramatlabama, and I don't even remember how old I was when we moved, but I know that it was around 2000 and 2001, and I was starting grade 1. That's when we officially moved to Mafeking. And that's pretty much where most of like my childhood memories come in. And even then, they are not like very vivid. Like, I know people who will say, when I was 3, this and this happened. And I know, like, I see it even with my own child. Like, my child still remembers my mom fully. Like, she remembers every single thing about my mom. And she remembers it to a point where I know that when she's older, she'll still be able to recall like her moments with my mom, and it won't just be like a distant memory for her. And yeah, this is actually making me sad, and I wasn't even trying to talk about that. But yeah, that kind of hit home. But the point was that like I don't remember my life in Ramatlabama, like half of it. I remember, I want to say bits and pieces, but it's not even enough for me to like form any real memories, you know, of like how life was, how I was raised, how my mom was, like if I was with my mom and my dad, like I don't remember, you know. And yeah, so then in the 2000s we moved, and that's where I guess I start forming like some of like my memories. And even then, like I can't necessarily say I can pinpoint or understand like how my parents raised me or whatever, but I do know like all of my siblings were also different, and like we have different personalities, and yeah, but the point is that when you do suffer from like having like these heightened abandonment issues, usually it's because of that. And you also form like people-pleasing tendencies, which I really struggled from and maybe still struggle from right now. They were very heightened after I lost my mom. All those emotions and that fear. And mind you, I really didn't know before that. Like, I mean, before 2 years ago, like I wasn't really aware of my fear of abandonment and my people-pleasing tendencies. I didn't know that there was like a term. I mean, I knew there was a term for that, but I didn't know like that's how I navigated my life. Okay. So anyway, then I lost my train of thought again. But yes, so then when I was in a specific relationship, just after I lost my mom, that's when all those things like were very, very, very heightened. But now when I started thinking about it, and I was thinking even about like my relationship, even when my mom was around, like the relationship that I was in, how I behaved and carried myself, and the things that I did for attention, for love, for validation, they were so extreme, right? And I mean, I had no idea that I had this need for being loved and seen and cared for. But I know it was like a very uncomfortable feeling to be in. It was like someone was cutting off my air supply, and I needed to just like get some form of like feeling, you know, for me to just feel normal again. And then after I lost my mom, all of these things were really, really heightened. And mind you, I still didn't know that's what I was going through, you know. And I think that's why, I don't know if it was my previous episode or if it was, I don't know which episode it was, where I spoke about how I used to go out, like how I used to like seek healing from all these other external factors, from boys and alcohol and all these things. That was also just coupled with my need for feeling and my need for validation and acceptance and all of that. So then I went through this phase where I never wanted to be alone. And in that phase where I never wanted to be alone, I was never home. I was partying all the time. I wanted to be around people. Like sometimes I would even just go out by myself and just sit, just so I'm not like sitting at home by myself. I had a real problem with being alone. And I remember people used to just ask me like, why are you always out? Like you're out all the time. And at that time I used to think to myself, no, I just don't want to be home because my home doesn't feel like home anymore. Like my mom's not there. Being home is depressing. But I mean, to like a very deeper degree, I just needed interactions. I needed human interactions. And there was a point in my life where I was single. I remember like after I lost my mom and I lost the relationship that I was in, of which I fought so hard to stay in. Like I fought so hard to stay in that relationship, and not because I wanted to stay in it, but because I didn't want to lose anything else after I lost my mom. I fought to stay in a relationship that was so bad for me. Like that relationship was so bad. There was a point, and I don't think I've ever spoken about this to anyone. There was a point I tried to jump out of a moving car while I was in that relationship because I knew that I needed to leave that relationship, but I also couldn't leave it. Like I felt like I couldn't lose anything else after losing my mom. And I felt stuck, and I felt so it just felt like I was not going to be a normal human being. So here I am in this relationship trying to beg this person to stay, but also it's so confusing. Like I'm not begging the person to stay. I want this person to stay, but also at the same time I know this person is causing me to lose my mind, you know. And I think it was in that moment when I tried to jump out of the car that I was moving that I realized that this is going too far and I needed to leave. And you know, then I just kind of practiced like detachment from there, but it was really hard, and it was painful. It was like I was getting off drugs. It was hard, okay. And I mean, obviously, I'm saying all this in hindsight. In that moment, I didn't really know what was happening to me. And even after that, I went through therapy for a long time. But even still, like during therapy, it was just a thing where my therapist was just like, I'm depressed. And I've spent so much time with that person that I've kind of just formed my life around them and whatever. But like, I don't think like the deeper issue as to why those things why that incident occurred was ever really like looked into. It was just a more of a thing where I was suicidal and, you know, I just wanted to off myself, whatever. But then fast forward to years, like 2 years later, when I get that diagnosis, and even me being diagnosed with BPD wasn't based off of that experience. It was based off of other stuff, other recent stuff that were happening during like that phase of my life. But obviously when I think about the pattern of like how I've reacted to people leaving me, or me realizing that I need to leave certain spaces, like sometimes it's me who needs to leave certain spaces, but I can't. And I think that's where I would get suicidal, because I feel like I need to leave a specific space, but I can't, and it hurts, and losing people hurts. Like it hurts to a point where I feel like I cannot breathe. It's such an intense feeling for me, and I've never really recognized it like that until 2 years ago. And yeah, so I don't even know at the time what I was explaining to my therapist, but I then started really like looking into my patterns and looking into like how I've treated people, how I've treated relationships, the extent that I have went to keep people in my life, the amount of times I have stretched myself to a point where like I would abandon my own self just to keep people in my life, just to make sure that, I keep my friends, and then I went from that fear of abandonment to kind of like every time I realized that people could hurt me, I would now try and run away before they could hurt me. So I would kind of like, if I see anyone acting weird, I would just like cut them off. I would not give people chances to prove themselves. I was so fearful that if somebody gets too close to me, they will hurt me. So I would kind of just like cut people off like very quickly. And that happened for a long time until I started feeling very, very lonely and isolated, and I felt like I didn't have anyone. And that's where the alcohol and the boys and all of those things would now come in. Okay. And even then, like, I was putting myself in such dangerous situations just because I did not want to feel lonely. Some of the things that I think about now, I'm just like, that is crazy. Like, I cannot believe I would even do things like that, but I've always really had a really difficult time being by myself. And also the universe is just weird, because every time I would get to a point where I realize this is a problem and I'm like, okay, now I'm trying to be alone, I'm trying to like sit with these emotions, I'm trying to process whatever this abandonment thing is, look, I'll find myself in another relationship. And that's how I even met my current boyfriend. Literally, I was trying to like navigate all these emotions and trying to like just heal and be by myself. And then I met him, and honestly, I won't even lie, he also heightened my abandonment issues a lot. Like, he heightened them to a point where I just cannot even believe it, because I met him and I was like, oh, we're not falling in love, like we're just like having fun and there's nothing serious. And then I fell in love with him, and I think because it happened so unexpectedly, the emotions were so heightened and I fell in love with him so much, and he kind of just introduced me to a whole different world and a whole different way of being loved, a different way of being cared for, a different way of being seen. And then in my love for him, I now developed like this bubble where I just didn't want anyone to pop it, and I became very afraid of the relationship not succeeding. I became very afraid of him leaving me one day. I remember, I think after about like 6 or 8 months of us being in a relationship, I said to him, I had been wanting to tell him that for the very first few months of our relationship, I wasn't really being myself. I was very cognizant of the person I was when I was around him, because I didn't want him to know that I had these abandonment issues. I didn't want him to know that I'm fearful of people leaving me, and I just didn't want him to know who I was before he met me, or like the things that I was trying to heal from. And I always felt like if he knew who I was, if he knew the things that I had done, if he knew like what I was capable of, he would leave me, or he wouldn't be in love with me anymore. And it's part of the reason why I love my boyfriend so much, is because as we dated and as like some of my layers were peeling and the real me kept appearing. And I really thought he would leave. Like, I really thought he would never stick around for half of, like, for me, like, the real me coming out. And he did, and he chose me every single time throughout all those moments. But yeah, like, I had a conversation with him at that time, and I was like, I've been so afraid that once you see through me and once you see through all these issues that I have, you are gonna leave. And it was a real issue in our relationship. Like, my abandonment issues were so heightened that every time, like, even when we were not fighting, I remember there was this one time he had, I was cooking for him, okay? So I was cooking and I was taking very long to, like I was just cooking. It was taking long and he was hungry. And he left. He was like, let me go home for a bit. Probably when I come back, he'll be done. I don't really know what was happening at that time. And then he left. Then I thought, okay, he's probably gonna take long, so I'm gonna take even longer. And I took my time. I took a bath, and then he came back and he found me, like, still not done. And I remember this time he found me, like, I think in the bathtub, and he was like, dude. And I looked at him like, oh, I thought you're gonna take long. And then he looked at me, and then he said, it's fine. I don't know what he said. I was in the bathtub, but, like, he was standing by the door, and I don't know if he said he'll go eat somewhere else or something. I don't know what he said, but, like, yeah, we stood there by the door, and he said, I have to go or something like that, and then he left. And I cried so much. Like, after he left, I cried so much. Like, I cried to a point where I asked myself, like, what is this? And then he came back, and when he came back, like, it was okay, like, things were fine. And I'm like, why did you leave? And he's like, Pato, you were bathing and I was hungry. And I was so distraught because I thought, I don't even know what I thought, but I remember just saying to him, you walking out on me? He was like, I didn't walk out. I said, I'm coming back, and I left. I'm like, no, you walked out on me. And that feeling of just me sitting in the tub and, like, just watching him walk out suffocated me so much. Like, it suffocated me, and I was like, you left me. And he's like, I didn't leave you. I left the room. But that, to me, it felt like he literally walked away from the relationship. And there had been a whole lot of other random moments like that where he, like, my boyfriend Mac has just a thing where he walks out, like, just randomly, like we'll be talking, and then he'll be like, okay, like, for example, he has this thing where he used to come to my house very randomly. He'll come, he'll look at me, he'll chat a bit, and then he'll be like, okay, bye, then he'll leave. Like, he will just randomly show up to my house, have like a 5 minutes conversation with me, and then leave, right? So sometimes those moments would trigger, like, oh my gosh, you are leaving feeling in me. Guys, I cannot explain it, but it was just the wildest experience for me. And yeah, and then obviously then sometimes when we would have maybe disagreements and he would still leave, it would trigger me, and I'd feel like, you're leaving me again, and yeah, so he's really had to deal with those moments, like a lot of them, and he's seen me through all of that. And sometimes for me, I feel like it makes me feel like I want to leave the relationship just because I don't want to keep feeling those emotions, and I feel like being in the specific relationship triggers them, but only because I love him and I'm afraid of losing him. And I think that's just a normal reaction to being with somebody that you love, but with me it's just very heightened. And it's very suffocating and it's not a nice feeling, and it's really something that I really want to work on. And maybe also me leaving the country is helping me in a sense to have those emotions like in check, because I think now, in the sense, I'm the one who left. I didn't leave him, but like being the one who leaves kind of like calms down my nervous system. But even with me being here, I still have like a genuine fear that he's gonna wake up one day and decide he doesn't want to do this, and I'll be heartbroken, and we all know the drill. But yeah, I just wanted to have a chat about that, and just also get to a point where I'm trying to heal from it, or like calm my nervous system down in that sense. Like I said, moving has done like a great deal for me in that sense, and I do feel a lot more calmer. My nervous system does feel a lot more calmer. But yeah, it has been something that I suffered or still struggle with a lot. It's a big part of my personality, just even with my friendships, even with my family, like even with my brothers. It's been like a huge thing where I just really struggle with my connections with humans just because of it. And if you also suffer from the same thing, it's very important to be cognizant of it. I think the only way you're gonna get to a point where like your first step in trying to be okay is by acknowledging it. And sometimes you don't even know that's how you view society, and like that's how your connections are with other people. It's always going to affect your relations. It's always going to affect your connections with people, and it's just better to heal from all those things now, and to be cognizant of them now, and to try to find ways to deal with them now, and yeah, I just wanted to say I'm also really working on it. I'm not at all at a point where I have survived or I'm on the other side of it, but I'm definitely, because I'm aware of it, I'm definitely like a step closer to getting better at it. And yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on healing the abandonment wound. I'd like to have more conversations on it, healing the mother wound, what that does to your abandonment issues, and what loss also does to your nervous system in that sense. So there's a lot to talk about, and a lot I'd really like to discuss. So let me know what you guys think, and if you'd like to chat more about this topic. Anyway, I'll see you guys in my next episode. Thank you for tuning in, and please don't forget to keep healing.